Audra Yankton, empowerment and intuition coach, and this is Unveil You, the podcast where spirituality meets practicality to help you step fully into your power. Each episode, we'll talk about what it really means to align with your higher self, trust your inner knowing, and walk through life with grounded, soul-led confidence. Let's get into it. Welcome back, beautiful souls. Today on the Unveil You podcast, we have a very special guest today. Her name is Heidi Jaffe, and I'm going to let her give a beautiful intro of herself. But she is seriously, I am so excited for this episode. I'm actually buzzing. So Heidi, I'm going to turn it over to you to go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and a little bit about some of the work you do as well.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm so excited. We have just such a great connection, and I love all of it. So my name is Heidi Jaffe. I am a certified psychic medium and a certified master teacher of advanced psychic mediumship. I'm also a dual certified breathwork coach and the owner and founder of Nissa Retreats. My retreat company is a company that I built to help educate people on how to open up their psychic abilities and their mediumship abilities in a really safe, cool environment in amazing places all over the world. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll be talking about that, but that's where I am and what I do.
Super unique. Honestly, before I had been connected with you, I'd never heard of anybody doing such a thing before, like putting on these really, I don't know, I'm going to call them glamorous retreats of kind of self-discovery. So, yeah. We'll definitely dive into that a little bit more. But the first thing I think I want to address is, I think the first time I met you, you said something like, you're not the typical psychic. Like, you're not the typical person in this woo-woo space. As we both said, we kind of hate that word, woo-woo.
Yeah, I know. I hate that word. And it comes up so often. And I find myself saying it. I'm like, oh my God, why did I just say that? I hate that.
I hate that it's actually the perfect descriptor.
I know. So I'm not typical in the sense, I tell people I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not really hippy dippy. Like, I'm not way into yoga. I'm not meditating 3 times a day. I'm not like saying, oh, I've got spirits in the house everywhere and I feel spirits around you. Like, I feel like there's so much of that BS in the world and people wandering around with like this kind of that woo-woo kind of spiritual thing about them. And, I'm just like a normal, woman. Like, I'm a mom, and like, I like my, my nice shoes, and I travel a lot, and I'm very down to earth, and I just hang out with my friends, and I work out, and, do all these like just normal life things. People think because I have this job that I live, I don't know, some weird like cosmic life. And they think that like I'm doing stuff at midnight. People will email and be like, can you do reading at midnight? I'm like, no, I'm sleeping. I get up at 6 to take my kid to school. Are you serious? And they'll be like, hey, can we do a seance with you? I was like, well, I would love to do a seance. That would be awesome. But no, I don't do seances, So I'm just not typical in the sense that like when people see me, they're not going to look at me and go, oh, she's like into, spiritual stuff. Like, I'm not wearing like flowy dresses and all of,
walking around barefoot, seeing dead people everywhere.
Yeah, no, I just look like a normal person, a normal mom. And like, I go do normal things. I don't know.
Definitely. So, I think you kind of touched on something, which is there is this stigma that if you have psychic abilities, or you're aware of them, we'll say you're aware of your psychic abilities and you lean into them, that that just kind of marks you as something kind of offbeat or whatever. But that is simply not my experience meeting more and more psychics and mediums as I kind of walk down this path in my new career here with Unveil You. But yeah, and I think you're a really great example of that, like a very down to earth. Like, if I would have just met you in the grocery store, I would have had no idea that you are so gifted at connecting to the beyond. So
yeah. And I think a lot of people assume as well, which I run into all the time, is that if you do this work that you're just always on, and people get freaked out by me when they do find out, because they think I'm reading them, Yeah. And all I'm thinking is like, man, I've been doing readings all day. The last thing I want to do is read somebody at a party later, or that like I'm walking through the market and like seeing like their grandma walking down the aisle, was I'm picking out cereal or something, it's like, it just doesn't work like that. I turn it on and turn it off,
Completely.
And so like part of the mission I have is not only just to normalize it, it's not scary, but it's also something like takes over you. Like you always have control of yourself.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know, it's not like spirits come up and like take over your body. I mean, the perception that people have is wild to me.
I
So
I think like when you're who you're describing is like what's her name? Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium,
yeah,
like
yeah.
where she just is overtaken in the grocery store, like I must tell you about your wife that has passed on kind of thing. And yeah, I'm starting to realize like that's like totally not the norm for people who are legitimate in this space.
Well, yeah, and also you don't just go up to strangers. I mean, obviously, those people who
Right.
have signed waivers and whatever, so they know someone's coming. But like, I would just make sure and to put this out in the world because I come from a very ethical place, and that's what I teach people when they come on a retreat when they're learning, how to do this because it's very exciting when you get those validations. You want to test it, but you have to be careful because a lot of time you get something, it's really just your ego wanting to know you're right, and you're not really thinking about the other person. So it's really taboo just to walk up to a stranger and tell them something because you can ruin their lives. You know,
Oh,
you can't just
absolutely.
assume that they want to hear that information. Not everybody wants that, you
Hmm.
know? And so,
Totally. You have to like, how else would you know if someone's in a place to be ready to hear something? Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, yeah. I love that you bring that up because I think that's something I don't hear many people talking about. So, well, that kind of to my next question then is what opened the door for you to get into the psychic space in the first place? Like, can you remember back, like, is it been your entire life or was there a turning point for you?
There was very much a turning point. I always had it like a lot of people, um, but there was a real turning point when I moved from Los Angeles to Florida. And the reason being, there was a lot of noise in LA. I had a very busy, kind of crazy life. Then all of a sudden, I became a mom. And that stuff was all happening before. I'm kind of shortening it a little bit there to kind of get to the main thing. But when things got quiet for me, when I was able just to have more space on my own and my life slowed down, all that stuff just came bubbling to the surface, in a big way. And it just came on and it came on strong and it came on fast. And all
Hmm.
of a sudden I realized all the stuff I had been experiencing my whole life. I went, oh my gosh, this is all real.
Hmm.
Holy cow. Like I didn't make this up or wishful thinking or in my imagination or I'm crazy. Like it all became so clear and so loud for me that like I had no choice but to keep, pushing forward with it, and seeing where it would go.
Yeah, I was like, Spirit just said, okay, Heidi, it's time. Like,
Like
this
it's
is what you're
time.
gonna do. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So one thing when we first met that I really connected with you on was we kind of have this shared similar background of like these medical professional families
Right.
and high expectations. And I mean, I'm in like the research field and my full-time job, and then here I am kind of coming over into the space that's a little less untapped. And like here you are, I guess you could say you have more of an alt career compared to your family anyway, doctors, lawyers, that kind of thing. So, what was it like, to grow up in that kind of environment with the high expectations and maybe people around? I guess I'm making maybe some assumptions here that it was taboo to your family, but I think the world looks at families like that as like not open to this kind of thing, or that, you can't possibly incorporate like this strict, high expectation lifestyle along with like psychic and mediumship abilities. So, kind of describe what it was like growing up in that environment and then how you were able to marry the two worlds together at some point.
Yeah, well, one, I do feel lucky. My parents and my family have always been very supportive of me,
Hmm.
and I grew up in a hospital. Really, I mean, my dad would pick me up, and then I would spend the rest of the afternoon in the hospital and running around talking to all the doctors, and that's what I did after school. It wasn't really normal. um, but my school was close to my dad, and I went to like the private girls' school, and everybody went to all the big colleges, and so and I went to cotillion and I had this stuff. And like, I was like this black sheep kind of
Mm.
thing, but I used to see him all the time. And I'll tell you what's interesting is many years later, as we get older, we get in touch, with people from high school we haven't talked to in 20 years and blah, blah, blah. So I would run into some people and they would say, when I told them what I was doing, some people, would be judgmental and some would go, oh, of course you are. Like, we remember when you were 12, 13, you would totally walk in and just say this stuff, like, oh, there's such and such in the corner and this person, that person. And then I would go move on and do whatever we're doing. And I wouldn't even bat an eye about it. It wasn't like I was, making a big thing about it. Be like, oh yeah, there's like a grandfather in the corner over there. But like, hey, what are we going to have for lunch? And so some people were like, this is exactly who you should have always been. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of a mixed thing, but but it was always hard in the big picture, just because in general, the way I grew up in Los Angeles, people didn't, who I am, what I do is just weird, because like, it just is. Everybody's like all frat people and sorority people and all this stuff. And, I don't, you know what I mean? And so, as I kind of came out as I was older, I really felt like a lot of judgment and like, okay, what happened to Heidi? Like seemed so normal now, but I just kind of own who I am, and luckily I've always been very confident in who I am, even though I've struggled with finding my way owning this part of me, not at this point of my life, but in the beginning. But I've always had just enough confidence to be like, no, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to let them roll off my back.
I completely agree with that sentiment. It's like throughout my life, have I always seen myself as this super confident person, like exactly where I want to be in life? No. But one thing that thank God I was always born with was just being sure of myself. And then,
exactly.
just being sure in yourself can really light the path for you. It's like, yeah, I don't know what I want. I don't really know how I feel about myself, but I know that's not for me. So I'm gonna keep moving this way. So okay. So, speaking of that, like just different times of your life where you felt like people were maybe more judgmental, did you actually feel the pressure to suppress your gifts? Like, did you actually actively do that?
I've never suppressed my gifts. I just suppressed myself.
Mm.
What I mean by that is I was always doing my work. I'm very motivated, very determined. Like I am so type A. When I'm on a roll, like you cannot get me off that train,
Yep.
And so I never did that, but I ended up losing a lot of friendships because I got so focused, but also I was tired of the judgment. And, you know, for a while, I wouldn't even tell people what I do. And I still do it sometimes because I don't want to get into it. People say, what do you do? If I'm at a party, if I'm never going to talk to somebody again, I'll be like, I'm a grief counselor. And that shuts them up and they won't ask me another question.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, that's a really sad, boring job. Okay, I'm moving on to the appetizer table. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah, they're like, I'm not going to dive into that one.
Yeah, but saying I'm a psychic medium in certain places, especially being in Florida, it's like, very religious and stuff, and so I always felt I had to be careful, but and so I would just kind of lie, or I'd avoid the conversation. If somebody asked me something, I'd kind of like pretend to like veer off because I was like, I don't even want to, and so that's what I mean by suppressing myself. Like I wouldn't, it's not that I didn't own who I was, it was just the amount of questions I would get because people immediately like, oh, what are you picking up about me? And it's like, you're so good, then what is my grandma's name? Like it just starts challenging me, like I'm like a circus monkey.
Yeah.
And as I told you, how many times I've heard, I'm like, oh, I'm a medium, they're like, you look more like a small, like every loser guys that said that to me, oh my Lord.
It's funny. Both times you've said that to me, I think of my old job in high school. I was a checker at a grocery store, and if something didn't scan, they would go, oh, I guess it's free.
Like, yes,
it's like the amount of times, and it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah. So, I would just kind of I would avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because I never really wanted to lie, but then sometimes I would just say I'm a grief counselor. If I felt like I was going to know somebody for longer than that hour, I would tell them what I did, because I'm never going to lie about what I do. But people that are in passing, like, I'm not going to get cornered for an hour because people are just curious about it. And I don't blame them, and I love talking about my work in the right, circumstance and in the right environment. But it's like, I don't need to be cornered everywhere, I go. So it's easier just not to say something sometimes.
Totally. That makes sense. I wouldn't want to sit and talk about my job because you obviously have a very fascinating, interesting job that everybody could benefit from. So
yeah, and I get it.
Makes sense.
I get it.
Yeah. You kind of brought up a good point of like, a couple of things. You said, you're not always on, right? You have to like obviously get into a state and read people, and you don't really like you know, people want to challenge you and ask you questions. But I've actually always been curious for somebody like yourself who is very, very strong in their psychic abilities. What do you notice about people like that you just met? Is there anything that stands out to you? Do you see auras? Do you see anything
When
like
I
interesting?
meet people out like in the world,
Yeah, yeah, like you're out in the wild and you just kind of are around people.
no, you know what's really interesting? I don't pick up anything when I'm not at work because I
Interesting.
turn off. Now, the only time I will, which is interesting, is if I take like say like 2 weeks off of work and I'm out of the routine of opening up and closing down. That's when I'll start picking stuff up because it's
Oh,
like my boundaries go down a little bit, and
yep.
then I'll start picking things up here and there. I'm like, oh no 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 no, we're on vacation, Heidi. But you know, I never even look and try to reach out and read somebody. First of all, that's someone's private space. So I would never do that without asking permission if somebody asked me to. So that
Mhm.
above everything, like, you know, that authenticity and ethics is important for anybody to know if you're opening up those sides. And I just do it naturally. So I really don't. But you know, but I'm open in the sense just like you are, like we still get gut feelings about people. You
Feeling
know, we
vibes,
see like
right?
they're an ugly energy, you know, or they're a beautiful energy or whatever, but we all have that gut instinct that, you know,
Yeah.
called, you know, clairsentience, your clear feeling, you know. So
Yeah. No, I'm glad you answered that for me because it's something I've always wondered is like I feel like, you know, I don't necessarily like see colors when I come into people's auras, but yeah, like you said, it's like a gut feeling. Like you pretty much know right away when you meet somebody, like it's in a business way or friend way or whatever, if you're like, yeah, this isn't gonna work for me. I don't really know why, but like, no, it's a no for me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So like thankfully that's always on for me seemingly anyway. But okay, so I want to talk a little bit about psychics in the media and how they're portrayed. We kind of already hinted at this at the beginning of our conversation, but how like how are they portrayed versus like the reality? And why have you chosen to kind of say, I mean, you've told me before you've had some opportunities to maybe like be the face of like psychics and mediums, but you say no, and obviously for your authenticity, so that makes sense. So I just kind of want to talk about a little bit more of like what's going on there and why is the media just on one about like making psychics such a weird space when really it's a very normal thing.
yeah, it is a very normal thing. And there's also a lot of great psychics and a lot of great mediums out there. And I feel like, but there's more bad, so they overshadow all the good. So all the ones that are good, it's like, you know, that are true and really genuinely help people. We're like climbing this mountain, you know,
Yeah.
and then getting pushed back down, you
Hmm.
know. And so, you know, that's why I want to normalize it. And that's why, you know, and have the retreats and whatever, like, hey, like I'm gonna show you, you know, this is real and you can do this. And like, you know, people are authentic, you know, and this is really healing. And you know, just take out that weirdness. Like I hate that it has to be weird. Like why? It's
Yeah.
so frustrating. So you know, I think because there's so many things. I mean, most people have grown up with some sort of religion,
Hmm.
right? I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so they are skeptic of, you know, of mediums and whatnot. And I think it gets worse. And just going back to the media, it gets worse because then we have the media presenting people as like these cheesy woo woo, or you know, there's always shows to like challenge them to make them fail, you know. And
Hmm.
it's so awful to do. Like it really, I don't watch any of it, you know. And some of it's so contrived, and I don't know. I mean, I do think there's some that I think are coming back off the top of my head, but there are some more real people kind of making their way to the surface, and it's getting more normalized. There's just not enough of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like people just have a hard time really believing that there is something else out there because it goes against all their beliefs that they were brought up with, whether by
Hmm.
religion or their family or, you know, just generational. And so when we don't understand something, we always have to combat it. We can't just, you know, have some faith in it.
Yeah, yeah. And when you were saying that, I kind of thought about how like we don't go to the doctor's office and then just like withhold information from them and then challenge them on what they know, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah,
work like that. Like we
yeah,
want
but
people to do good at what they're here to do. So why would we then intentionally make something harder for somebody? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, because like you're always coming from a defensive point in this profession.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
somebody comes in and I'm always gonna have to be in a defensive mode, right? And not that I am, but you know what I'm saying? Like
totally.
it, because they're waiting
Looking
for
out for
they're
something.
they're they're, they're waiting for you to fail on something to them prove they want you to be right, but they want you to fail at the same time. It's a really strange thing.
Do you think part of it might have something to do with like they don't want to think it's that simple to get answers to stuff, you know?
Maybe, I think also it's they want the answer, but it scares them as well. And I
Yeah.
just think that's a human nature with people. Um, yeah, it's a really fascinating thing. I analyze it, all the time, every time I see a client, how they all come in with different energies. Some are so open and some are like hands, across their shoulders, like you're not getting anything and I'm gonna
Mhm.
prove you wrong. And I'm like, and I look at them, I'm like, I'm gonna make you cry in like 2 minutes. Game on.
Flip it into a game. Like, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, okay, a challenge accepted. Let's go.
Okay, this is kind of random, but when you see people that come in with the open versus very closed energies, do you find that's more related to their experiences in this life or just soul experiences throughout different lifetimes? What do you think contributes more to that?
Oh, that's such a complicated question because everybody's got such different
Yeah,
backgrounds,
true.
and also where they grew up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so multifaceted. I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with past lives. I think it has to do with everything that's put upon them in this life,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
good and bad.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So some are just a harder nut to crack than others in that way. Yeah. Um, So, what do you think? Like, okay, if our listeners haven't gathered by now, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. We all have psychic abilities.
Yes, we do.
And that's what Heidi is awesome about, like in educating people about. She's built a whole business around it. So I want to talk about, before we get into kind of the more specifics about what our listeners can do to understand maybe what type of psychic abilities they have. What are some of the most common fears people have about embracing spiritual gifts in general?
One, again, religion comes up, and I know I brought this up, but I see it so much. They scared it will they'll go to hell, or that they're doing something taboo, that they're summoning the devil. I mean, you'd be surprised the stuff that I see and hear. So there's that. People are fearful of being judged by their peers, by their spouses, by people that they work with, by like opening this up and owning it.
Mhm.
Um, the biggest thing, just on a personal level, is people are scared of failing. Like they're feeling all this stuff, but they're scared to say it because if they're wrong, they're going to look so bad, and their ego's going to be bruised,
Yeah.
and that feels terrible. I mean, man, I remember way back when, if I got a no, oh my god, I will cry like nobody's business. Oh my god, I'd get 20 things right. I got one thing where I was like, I'm terrible. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
you know,
completely.
and
That's so relatable. I actually remember one time, back when I lived in Colorado, I had some coworkers who were into some recreational mushrooms. They were telling me all about, the experiences they had, and one of them was talking about this thing called ego death, and I was like, "What's that?" And they're like, well, the way they had explained it at the time was like, where basically everything embarrassing or bad that's happened to you is brought to the forefront and you have to confront it. And I just remember being like, well, that's a drug I definitely never want to try because I don't think I can handle that. Like, I was acutely aware of it at the time that like my ego was in like no place to be, and not that it was out of control. It was just like I didn't want to confront it. You know what I mean? For a long, long time.
oh yeah, and eventually, the way you get past that, it's just the trial and error. And so like that's why, like, when I created these retreats, it's truly for everybody. And you don't have to have experience. The other thing is, people think if they delve into it that they have to want to be a psychic medium, or want it to be a profession, but it's not. This is a natural trait we all have that we can use in our daily lives, whether for our own daily intuition on making decisions, or even being in touch with our loved ones when we're grieving,
Mm-hmm.
and both sides of that. So it's accessible to everybody, and I've created a safe environment so that people can come, those fears that they have of failing, I created the safest space. Like, here, I'm going to catch you. You're going to fail, and that's okay. But then you're going to start learning what the yeses feel like and what the no's feel like, and you're going to have less no's, because the only way you know is if you keep doing it over and over again, and then you start to notice those tiny little differences between the right and the wrong, and you'll start weeding them out,
Yep.
and that's how you build the confidence, and that's why I keep it small, you know. I have, for 5 nights, so you can really start to get comfortable with the people around you,
Yeah. That'd be
and
huge, right?
make a safe space. And it's not about, that you have to do a profession or that you have to be good. You don't have to be good. That's the thing that people, they're scared. They want to be good. They're scared to not be good. And I was like, it's not about being good. It's just about trusting.
Because you have to start somewhere,
You
right? It's like,
have to start somewhere.
I think I used this analogy before. Like, if you're going to be in a bodybuilding competition and you've never been in the weight room in your life, that doesn't mean you just give up. Like, you start somewhere, right? You go to the gym, you do put some reps in, and you go again the next day, and the next day,
Exactly.
keep doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it to like a marathon. It's like, and it's a building a muscle. Like, you don't just run 1 mile and then run a marathon the next week. You run 1 mile and then 2 miles and so on. It's the same thing with building your psychic intuition or your mediumship. And there's some days you're going to be able to run faster, and some days you're going to be slower, and sometimes it's going to hurt and you're not going to be able to.
Hmm.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly. And never judge yourself wherever you're at. That's one thing I found to be big is like, maybe yesterday I was on and like the next 3 days I'm like, nothing makes sense to me. It's like I can't judge myself for that, and nobody should judge themselves for that, because that's like the quickest way to just give up and never want to do this stuff again.
But that's what most people do. You
Yeah.
got to get past the hard part.
It's the same with everything, right? If you think
Yep.
about anything that was worth having, like getting a puppy or having a baby, that's where I'm living right now. It's like, wow, that beginning phase is so difficult. You look back, you're like, I don't even know how I got through that, but now you're on the other side and you're having a lot of fun, and things are clicking, right? So next thing we like absolutely have to talk about is the different kinds of clairs, because I want, again, our audience to, maybe if they listen to, maybe awaken something in them, like, oh yeah, that actually sounds familiar. So and I know I'm going to keep a actual tally of like which ones we're going through as you say them, because there's so like 8 of them. Is there 7 or 8 different types?
Well, we focus on four.
Oh, we're gonna, okay, well, let's do
Yeah.
4 then. Let's do
Yeah,
the
we're
main
going to do
4.
four because those are the main ones that people use and that we all use on a daily basis.
Okay, I love that, because if you try to go any deeper than that, it's like, wait, what? Like, there's like
No,
a
it's
what?
too much.
It
Like,
is
yeah,
perfect.
we're starting with the ABCs.
Let's do that.
Before
Let's
we
start
ride in
with
the
the
bubble.
ABCs. So let's talk about, why don't you go ahead and break down the different types of the 4, main clairs for us. And as you're kind of breaking them down, talk about what each one feels like, or how to practice that, or I guess how that manifests in real life for people.
Sure. So I'll start with the most obvious one, which is the gut feeling, which is clairsentience. Okay.
Mhm.
That's clear feeling. We all use that on a daily basis. Like, oh, I had, so many people say, oh, I knew, I'm saying I felt like that was going to happen, or, I had a feeling about that. Um, and that's your inner psychic intuition in your gut, gut feeling. And so we all use that every single day. I have a gut feeling that's a good person, or I have a gut feeling I should, pick this, I don't know, this job over this one.
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
using your gut majority of that time.
Yeah.
What
And
feels
it's not
right.
just for women, like everybody kind of seems
No,
to
yes. And I
stereotype
have
it,
a lot of
right? Like,
men. I have a lot of men, who come on retreats as well, a lot. And so, that's just really using any of our clairs, it's when we get a sense of something, to me, it's really simple. It's just taking that extra second to breathe into it and feel like, okay, yep, that's definitely what I feel. Because we do have to be careful, because sometimes we're acting out of unnecessary fear,
hmm hmm
because sometimes our gut, is right, but sometimes we're allowing our fear to get in there, and like our gut actually knows the right thing, but then we let our fear get in there. So it's like taking that extra moment to take that extra deep breath. Okay, is this what I really feel, or am I letting my fear get in there? So that's a little bit tricky. So,
hmm hmm
okay.
And actually, I will just piggyback on that. One thing I heard recently that I'm sure some of our listeners have heard this too, is that every feeling is either rooted in fear or love. So
Sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
like try to kind of, if it works better to kind of be like this way or that way with it. It's like, which way are you actually feeling? Is this a fear feeling or is this a love feeling? Because if it's fear, it's not your gut, right?
Yeah, but
Well, I
that's
mean, unless it's telling you to get the heck away from something, but yeah.
yes, yeah, and then, yeah, it's a gut, gut feeling like I shouldn't go down that alley. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
listen to that. You're probably going to be right about it.
Yeah.
You know, you
Exactly.
know, and that comes from fear as well. But that fear is real. You know, so
Yes.
like
Yes.
so that's what
It's
ties it. Like
actually a good use of
and
fear.
working
Yeah.
together. You know, in that kind of situation. So that's the first one. The other one would be claircognizance, and that's your clear knowing, where you just know stuff. Like all of a sudden, you just know the phone rings, and you know who's going to be on the other side.
Mhm.
You know, or sometimes people just they just know something's going to happen. Or, you know, they know something's wrong with somebody. You know, there's that knowing, and now claircognizance and clairsentience kind of run together sometimes, right? So using something like knowing something's wrong with somebody, because you're actually using both there. Your mind is going, I know this because I know by sensing it, but you're also feeling it at the same time.
So you're getting
Like
like double confirmation there.
yes,
Yeah.
so you know, and that's what we really do, use all of them at the same time. I'm just trying to break them up, and sometimes it may just be more one than the other, you
Hmm.
know. So that's just, you know, that's just like when you just know and you don't know where the information came from and you just know it, you
Hmm.
know, like I know that person's going to turn that direction, or like I know he's going to say this, you know, not just because you know somebody, you know, because they're predictable, but you just sometimes you just know that stuff, and that's your claircognizance. There's no real explanation for it. It's just a knowing. That makes
Yep.
sense,
Yep. Definitely.
you know, and
And
that's
I will
about
say
it.
too, in the spirit of coming out of the spiritual closet, if there's one Claire I identify with the strongest, it's that one, Claire cognizance. It's kind of been
Yeah,
my whole entire life. It's like, why do I know this random thing, or like how do I know that's about to happen? And I only just in the last couple years of my life have been putting that together. It's like, oh, it's a message from spirit. I'm not crazy. It's
yeah.
like not coincidence either. It's like I
No,
actually
it's not.
yeah.
And it's something that's really kind of hard to explain, because like it's something you like you just know, and it comes out of freaking nowhere.
It is. It is. It's like, my mom's gonna love that. Like, oh, I bet you do think you know everything. It's like, no, no, no. Trust me, I'm not saying I know everything, not even like 1% of the massive amount of information on this planet. But like when it's applicable and when I come upon situations where I'm gonna need to know something to like be successful in it, the information always just seems to dump in my head at the right time. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then so then we have clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, right? A lot of people say it's your third eye, you know, so it's like you sometimes it's seeing something, you know, more visually, you know, but it's usually in your mind's eye. So it's like a lot of people get psychic information in their dreams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I hear that a lot. Um, and you know, the way it comes in for everybody is different, but like in that way, so it's like if you have a dream, you know, look, I've seen so many times people, oh, I had a dream my you know, my dog was going to die, and then they were dead the next morning. That actually happened to me when I was younger. I literally had a dream, and but like people say, you know, I had a dream that my grandma was going to pass, and they passed, you know, the next day or whatever. So that's your clairvoyance, but it's also a bit of claircognizance, because it's like you just knowing, but you're also seeing it. So you might get these little visions, or like sometimes you get a flash of something, like, you know, not to be on the dark side, but like a car crash, and all of a sudden the crash happens, right? Just a little more extreme there. Um, so you know, that's your clairvoyance or clear seeing. Or sometimes like you may, like a lot of people, they experience it when they're daydreaming.
Yeah.
You know, they're like seeing something, but then all of a sudden it happens. You think you're kind of daydreaming, but like, oh, well, that's so weird, I saw that, you
Yeah.
know.
Or like
Almost like a deja vu.
I was gonna say, yeah, like deja vu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I kind of want to ask a question too about like when you say seeing, because I think there's like this stereotype again that psychics are just seeing things with their eyes open, walking around or whatever. Can you like define seeing exactly, or like where to look for that when you're talking about seeing something?
And that's a really good question, because it's like seeing it in the front of your like forehead, essentially. You
Hmm.
know, so like when I see people on the other side, it's not like I'm visually seeing them like stand in the corner next to the chair. I mean, they are, but it's like it's in your mind's eye. A lot of
Hmm.
people, I think they feel like they're supposed to see it like literally like standing in front of them, whatever it is, but it's not. It's like a flash in your head.
Hmm.
It's like a photograph or like a slideshow.
Like if you were to close your eyes and imagine something, that picture in your head,
Yes.
that's what that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That is that. Yeah, like just seeing something before it happens, or you know, Like I'm using my clairvoyance when I reach in to open up to loved ones on the other side. I line them up in the room a certain way so I know what their relationship is, and so then I see them. You know, I'm like, okay, if she's on my right, I know that's a mom, right? And then I see somebody in the corner, I go, okay, that's going to be a friend. And then I see, a man on my left, I know that's going to be a dad. So that's using my clairvoyance, but I'm also feeling their energy as well. Okay, this feels like a female, this feels like a male.
Mm-hmm,
you know
mm-hmm.
I see that they look older, like gray hair. I see that they look shorter, so they're a smaller, younger person, right?
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
that's where that comes in.
Okay. So we got sentience, cognizance, voyance. What
And
is
then
the
there's clairaudience, which is your clear
audience?
hearing. So the audience was the first thing for me. I would hear them perfectly, loved ones on the other side. Now it's a little bit differently psychically, but I'll just tell you auditorily, because this is maybe helpful for people when they feel like they're hearing voices. A lot of times, like they're hearing their loved ones, but they second guess it,
Mm-hmm.
but they actually are. And sometimes it's truly just like your higher self telling you something. So some people will hear it, they won't necessarily see it. You'll hear like, you should really turn right, you know? And I'm like, oh yeah, I really should, because I'll hear like voices in my head, and I don't think I'm nuts. Maybe some people do, but sometimes I can tell like, oh, it's my grandma. Sometimes I don't know where it's coming from, but it almost sounds just like me. But I hear it. It's like, don't do that,
This is
or no.
maybe a strange question, but like, when you say hearing, like, if someone's right next to me saying something, it's almost like I can feel the vibration on my ear, right? Like, do you experience that physical feeling as well with it, or it's just in your head?
No, it's just like in your head.
Okay, okay.
It's not like you're hearing, spirits knock on windows and doors or anything like
I
that.
think I literally just read that the other day of like, oh, you'll hear like knocks on your wall or whatever. And I'm
No,
like,
no,
I
no.
don't think so. Like, I
I
think
mean,
your
that stuff
house is
can
haunted.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, stuff like that happens. I do house readings. I love doing house readings, and there's all sorts of fun stuff that happens. But that's not what this is. But the
Okay.
clairaudience, people. I think some people hear more than they realize.
Mhm.
They think they're just kind of talking to themselves, but a lot of times it's their higher self trying to tell them something. You know, and there's easy ways to build that, but the clairaudience is going to come in more with the mediumship than with the psychic, because hearing people's voices, hearing what they have to say. So like I always heard people's voices very clearly, like I'd hear a man come in, oh, what are we doing today? Oh man, and hear that, and they're like, oh, that's exactly how my dad spoke, or they're like, super hyper and, high pitched voice, or, so I always could hear those things,
Okay.
and
Interesting.
people can tap into that when, especially when they're doing the mediumship or, tapping into their higher self to hear their voice, their higher self voice, which might be a little bit of a different octave than their normal voice. And if they start to be able to differentiate that, they can understand a little bit more. And also to understand that the voices they're hearing that sound like their dad or their brother who was passed over, it really is them. It's not their imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And like, I think the next thing I want to understand then is like self-doubt is a really big barrier, I would say, that keeps people from fully expressing their psychic abilities. And I mean, could totally cold stop you, right? Like if you don't trust yourself, what good is any of these gifts, right? So I want to understand, especially because you literally teach this for a living. What does trusting your intuition look like practically when you're starting to doubt yourself? Like how can you start to instill that confidence that it's like, I'm not crazy and just hearing voices in my head, for example, because I mean, like you could actually have a medical problem in some cases, right? But like how do you kind of help yourself understand that like no, like what I'm experiencing, I'm not making up. This is real and like I want to lean into this more. Like how do you help people with that?
That's, it's about the trial and the error, because
Mm-hmm.
that is how you build it. Because you have to start to learn the difference of what feels right and what feels wrong. And you need a safe environment to do that,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's at home with people that you trust or, at a retreat or whatever, getting over that self doubt is it's doing the practice, Audra. Like that's what it really comes down to. I can't just tell somebody, hey, be confident. You
Right.
only become If it was so easy, my goodness.
If it
Sure,
was so easy, I wouldn't have started a
right,
whole
awesome.
empowerment coaching business.
Totally.
Right?
It's the easiest job ever.
Like,
Um, it's like breaking things down by helping people feel confident in each unique way first, and also for them to learn how they work. Like, I don't teach people to work like I do. I just work the way I do because I organize the things I do the way that works for me. But so, like, if I see that you work a certain way, I'm going to help you become confident in the way you work, because we always trying to compare ourselves to other people. Well, they're doing better because they're like this, and so maybe I should do it their way. It's like, no, that's just their way. You have to find your way. So I help people find confidence in how they work, and then I help them feel stronger and stronger by trial and error and support, to get to that place. And they will eventually get there. And then once you get that first yes, boom, that confidence level just goes up. And I warned them, I was like, you're going to have a couple no's after this, but as long as you know that, you're going to be fine.
yep.
And like nothing bad is going to happen.
I
And
think
you're in
that's
a
a
place
good
where it
point.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, is like it just because you got it right once and wrong another time, that doesn't mean you're wrong every time after that. It's like it's truly developing a skill. Like not everyone is going to be like a 100% perfect every time.
No, it's impossible to be. And
Yeah.
I'm not either. And also each person you work with is completely different. So, you may get 10 right things with one person, the next person you get zero. And it's not because you're bad, it's just different energies. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with you and you don't suck. It's just maybe you're not the right person for that, particular person, or they're a harder energy for you. And like, that's okay.
Yep. And so with that, what are some like common, like if somebody, the beginner, assume they have nothing or no tools, they're just learning about this. What's the top one or two things you recommend for people who are just getting started at developing their intuitive gifts that they can do at home tonight even?
Sure. It sounds cliche, but meditating is everything.
Mhm.
It really
Why
is.
don't you define what meditating is a little bit? Because I think some people think it's just like you're sitting cross-legged and you're humming, and you know what I mean, the stereotypical meditation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I used to have the best meditations when I used to run. And what I did was I had a playlist that I never changed. So
Mm.
it became monotonous background noise, because if you're listening to something that's new, your brain sparks up. You're like, oh, I like that sound. Or like, oh, what was that word? Right. So we want to try to understand it, or we want to dance to it or whatever.
That's
But
a good point.
so I kept the same playlist on purpose, because then it just became background noise. So it distracted me enough that I could just be clear
Mm.
and have I mean, I literally meditate while I was running, you
Yeah,
know, because it
I've
was
heard of
it
that.
was taking my mind off of things. So I tell people it can be a walk. You don't have to be in some Zen trance, you know,
Mhm.
but it's getting grounded into your body. We talk about opening up chakras and stuff, and I wouldn't have necessarily beginners try to figure all that out. I mean, obviously look into it, getting grounded, but I wouldn't overwhelm myself with that, and I for me, I feel like it's really good just to find that peace, inside yourself. Start to feel grounded in your body, and see like where are you feeling fear and tension, and like why are you feeling that? Because that's the first thing you're gonna feel. It's like, what am I doing? I'm scared. What if I do get something? What if I don't get something? You're scared of everything. You
Mhm.
know, it's like, okay, well, let's just breathe through that. Some people, they may find that it's really good to do a guided meditation so they can follow someone's voice. Some
Yeah.
people need absolute quiet, and some people just need, music. There's no wrong way. It's just learning how to get like the monkey mind out of there.
Yep.
Because when we start to get still, we're like, oh, I forgot to send that email. I mean, I'm so guilty of it. I go through it every day myself. I'm like, oh my God, how do you just stop?
There's a
You know,
lot going on
there's
at
a
any given
lot going
time
on
for
in there.
anybody,
It's
right?
like,
Yeah.
and also your brain tries to distract you because you got that horrible ego, and it's like, you can't do this. You're not good enough. That's your imagination. You just made it up, blah, blah, blah. So
Yep.
it's starting to get comfortable with that and just letting that stuff come out and let it go, you
Mhm.
know? And I really think it's really great for people you know, to start looking for their spirit guides, because everybody's got them,
Mhm.
and allowing those people to start coming in. And that's a little bit, I only say that because if there are some people that are meditating, I just want them to hear that if they're going to that next level, that have gotten past all that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but it's truly about being quiet and like asking to connect to your higher self, to connect to your guides, to connect to your loved ones. and start to trust and start writing down what you're getting. I used to do meditations where I would just be still, and ask for, spirit to come forward and let me know what I need to know for the day, right? Just start there. Okay. Like what is going to happen today that I need to know about? Or is there some advice up there, right? It might be like, hey, be nice to the person next to you at your office because they actually had a bad day, had a bad morning or something. And then, you go in and that person's crying. You're like, oh, okay, I knew that earlier, right? Little things like that. I just made that up, obviously, but
And I'm going to underline too the value of writing it down, because I can't tell you
yes,
how many times it's like I've gotten something that didn't seem applicable. And then maybe like a few days later it popped up, and thankfully I had written it down to like validate it. Like, am I crazy? Did I actually think that before?
yeah.
So yeah.
And also it's okay to be in a meditation, get something, open your eyes, write it down, and go back in.
Exactly.
And also know that there's going to be some days that you don't want to do it or you can't do it, and that's okay. Don't force it, because
Yep.
then you're going to drive yourself crazy for half an hour. Like, God, I can't. But sometimes you may not be able to, and be like, you know what? I'm gonna let it go today,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna, try tomorrow.
If you just literally can't today, that's fine. Like you have permission. It's not like going to work
Because
Monday through Friday. You can actually just be like, yeah, not today. This isn't for me.
yeah, and the only thing with the meditation, you don't have to do 3 hours a day. It's even a few days a week, but it's being consistent with it, but also learning how to calm your mind so that you can be open to all those clairs. Because if you're thinking about all this other stuff, you're not going to hear, you're not going to know, you're not going to see, you're not going to feel, because your head's all over. So it's really trying to make your kind of like a clear vessel for you to be able to access all of that information,
Yeah. Yeah.
and learn. And what I will tell you is very helpful is, taking all this stuff that is driving you crazy in your brain, like, whether you put it in a garbage bag or you put it in a closet, and like just put it in there for the time you're going to do your meditation, you know,
Yep.
and then go back to it, because it's not going anywhere. It's going to be there as soon as you come back out.
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah. Like giving yourself permission to kind of like break up with that stuff for the moment and then get back into it. Because yeah,
yeah,
life is always waiting for us. So you might as well give
yeah. It's
yourself
it's
a
it's
minute.
all it's always waiting.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe something else that I think would be important to talk about too would be like intention setting. So,
Yes. So I was about to go into that.
oh,
So
okay, perfect.
I
Yeah.
was literally about to go. It's like, I'm just talking
That's
about the
like, I knew that. No, just kidding.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. There you go. It's setting an intention of what you want to get for the day, you
Hmm.
know. Um, sometimes you might be like, okay, I just want to learn how to be still, or my intention is, um, to be in touch with the love. My intention is to, you know, um, access something clairvoyant or, clairaudient, and just see what comes. And there's going to be days nothing comes,
Hmm.
but you always have to set the intention. I always tell people the biggest things happen in the quietest of times.
Hmm.
And because I would find that, like, I would meditate, setting the intention to connect with spirit and whatever, and I would have a whole lot of stuff, and then all of a sudden I'd have times where it just was black for a
Hmm.
while, and I'm like, okay, to lose it, but I was confident enough to know I'm going to roll with this, I'm going to keep doing it, and it's black for a while, and then all of a sudden there's this huge epiphany, like, a whole nother level of stuff came through, and I was like, whoa. I learned that over time. And so I like to remind people, like, nothing's going to happen overnight. You just have to be consistent, with it. And but setting the intention of what you want to do for the day, and don't make it so big. And the other thing is, people expect things to happen so fast. The reason why there's not a lot of good of psychics and mediums out there, as well as everybody gets things, they'll get something right once, and then they think they're so great, and then they haven't actually done the work for it to stay consistent or built that muscle, right? And then they go bloat and they hurt people. The other thing is, people expect everything to happen immediately. Like, well, I meditated 3 times and I'm not getting anything. It's like, are you serious? Like, you have to work at it. It's like you can't just run the mile in the marathon.
Yeah.
You have to make that connection.
It is like somewhat of a lifestyle change in that way of like just commitment to the practice. Like if you want to make this part of your life, it's not just like, to your point, you can't just show up one day and have it work and then peace out
Yeah,
for three
like
months and come back and
people, yeah,
mhm.
they don't want to commit, and that's why so many people fall out of it, because they can't commit to what it takes to build that muscle
And
and
there's no
do
Ozempic
the
for
work.
psychic abilities, unfortunately.
No,
So
no,
yeah.
you've got to do the work, and if you
Yeah.
do the work and you come from an authentic, good place, it's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah. That's yes, authentic place. That's a big that made me light up when you say that because yes, I think the more just honest with yourself that you are and your intentions and just trying to do like good things for you and others around you, just the easier time you're gonna have with stuff, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Well, Heidi, I have absolutely loved this conversation. I learned so much. I like every time I talk to you or someone else in this field, I just like I learn so so much, and it's just exciting to keep having these conversations. So I'm like, I mean, like in the spirit of commitment and like coming back to this and like trying to like really maximize my abilities in that way. It's like, I learned so much. So thank you so much for being
Oh,
here
you're
today.
welcome. The only last thing I will say really quickly
Oh
that is
yeah.
important with setting the intention is knowing, teaching yourself, which I teach people in the retreats, is opening up and closing down. Because
Yes.
when you open up, a lot of people don't close down after. So then they might get headaches later,
Mm,
or feel particularly drained. And so when you do these meditations, like imagine surrounding yourself with whatever protective, thing. Maybe it's a white bubble or a cloud or whatever, and imagine like opening up your senses. And when you finish meditation, imagine closing down, whether you're closing doors or closing a flower, whatever. So mentally using your imagination to protect yourself, to close it all down so you go on along your day, because if you stay open it will wear you out. And so that's an important part that I wanted to mention.
yeah, thank you for that. I was gonna, very good point and something that I need to get better at, honestly. And I've heard different things of like sometimes people like to take a shower or like wash their hands with the intention
Absolutely,
of closing,
absolutely.
like
Yep.
different things like that.
It's
Yeah.
whatever it is. It's whatever works for you. There's no wrong way, but it's what it symbolizes for you. So then
Yep.
your brain will mentally just do it. I always close down like a flower at the end of the day. You
Yep.
know, almost
Yep.
like a little Venus flytrap, like whoop, and it closes up, and then I go, whatever I'm going to do.
And then
So
you're not running into people at the grocery store trying to
no,
help
no,
things.
my
Yeah.
little mouth is not open, trying to fight into information on people.
Yeah. Well, Heidi, do you have any last words of encouragement for people as they're kind of either, whatever stage they're at in their journey? Like any last bit of encouragement you have for them?
No, I would just say, like, really have faith that, like, you have the power to do it. And there's nothing to be scared of by opening this up. It only makes you a more grounded and touch individual. Like, only good can come from being more in touch with yourself and your own power. Like, nothing bad is going to come from that.
Right.
And it's okay to be curious, and it's like it's okay to be you, and like don't let yourself be judged, because anybody who's judging you, they're ignorant, and you don't want those people in your life. And when you open up more, you're going to find that you're going to have less and less people like that in your life. You're going to get much more discerning because you don't want to deal with it anymore. And I know this, going through your work. You know
Absolutely. And it seems like, when you close doors on things that aren't serving you, it's like other ones open, better people, better connections come into your life. It's like when you consciously make the choice to like, I'm only going to be like giving my energy to people that deserve it. It just seems like better people just show up into your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, what's wrong with healing yourself and being in touch and like making a better life for yourself through your intuition, or healing your own grief by being able to be in touch with your loved ones? I mean, like, how
Right.
can that be bad? Like, no.
I can't think of a reason. Seriously. I always go back to like, you know what? Like if you're not paying my bills, I don't want to hear about it. Like it's none of your business really what I'm doing with my life. So so I guess if you want to pay my bills, that's another conversation. No, I'm just joking. No. Yeah. Well, anyway, awesome. Well, Heidi, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your talents with us today. And I truly can't wait for the next one. I'm going to manifest that right now. Can't wait for the next one.
No, we have to, we'll do a whole other thing. But thank you so much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure and honor to speak with you today. And I hope, people out there found it helpful, and maybe they'll find their way and find, some hope in what they're feeling, that they're not crazy.
Yes, I think that's the big one, right? Yeah. No, I definitely think they will. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Heidi. We'll see you
You're
next time.
welcome. Bye.